Ladies and gentlemen, we will begin in a short while. Please take your seats. One quick announcement, ladies and gentlemen, we will begin in a short while. Please take your seats. We will begin momentarily. Before we do so, I would like to make again one quick announcement. Please, if you have borrowed those little stations, devices for translation, please return them. We have to return them. They are really expensive. The next step is copying famous Miloš Forman movie, and we will have to shut down the lights. So please do not make us to do so, and return them there in the entrance to this hall. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the main hall and welcome to the economic block of this program of this year's Prague European Summit. We have a very packed schedule ahead of us, and I think it will be a very timely discussion right after the elections and shortly before next EU's strategic agenda will going to be approved. Competitiveness is the new buzzword in the institutions and also here in the corridors, and we will address it from very different angles. But first, before we start, let us hear from the Executive Vice President of the European Commission for an Economy that Works for People, Valdis Dombrovskis, who unfortunately can't be with us today, but who has sent us a special video message.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for inviting me to speak at this year's Prague European Summit, albeit virtually. As this EU institutional cycle nears its close, now it is a good time to look at the main challenges facing the European Union and reflect on what the future may bring in terms of policy direction. We have been confronted with a remarkable cascade of crises and shocks over the past years, compounded by profound geopolitical changes. On the heels of the COVID-19 pandemic came Russia's illegal war of aggression against Ukraine, conflict in the Middle East, intensifying competition between big players, and greater recourse to unilateralism. These shocks have exposed some of our economic weaknesses and our vulnerability to supply chain overdependence. Energy is a good example, following Russia's attempts to weaponize its oil and gas exports to the EU. But we have drawn as lessons. We know that to improve our resilience, the EU must continuously diversify its supplies, and it must maintain and expand its global network of reliable partnerships. Our economic challenges have also brought into focus the need to do more to uphold our competitiveness and economic security. So today I will focus on how trade can contribute to these goals. First, competitiveness. As a trading continent, Europe derives a significant share of its prosperity from trade. Trade allows the EU to tap into growth potential of other regions. In the coming years, some 90% of global economic growth will be generated outside the European Union, so it makes sense to strengthen our links with other growth centers. Trade gives us access to the vital inputs that we need, like critical raw materials, to move ahead with the green and digital transitions. It creates the export opportunities that allow our businesses to reach the economies of scale to compete globally. We want to keep our economic model open. We want to use our agreements to tap into new markets, secure inputs, but also to benefit our trade partners and raise sustainability standards globally. When it comes to negotiating trade deals, the European Union is second to none. We have the world's largest network of trade agreements with 74 countries. Thanks to these agreements, EU trade exceeded 2 trillion euros in the value in a first time in 2022. The EU is also leading efforts to reform the World Trade Organization. If we are to fully unlock the potential of trade, we must encourage our partners to play by the global rules of the game. The WTO rules remain the best guardrails against economic fragmentation. Around 55% of our trade takes place under these rules. Our aim is to make WTO fit for purpose in today's world, so that it better addresses challenges such as digital trade, climate change, and dealing with unfair subsidies. Second, economic security and resilience. Here, diversification is the name of the game, especially given the supply chain risks that I mentioned earlier. We have continued to expand our trade network of reliable partners. Besides classical trade agreements, we are creating alternative forms of engagement that are more flexible and tailor-made. These include trade and technology councils with the US and India, our negotiations on digital trade agreements with Singapore and South Korea, and our network of mutual recognition agreements. Our trade deals help to secure access to energy and critical raw materials. At the moment, we import 23% of critical raw materials from preferential trading partners. However, our trade agreement with Chile, for example, will strengthen our reliable sourcing of copper, since Chile is the EU's largest source of this key material. On a bilateral level, we are engaging with like-minded partners in strategic partnerships on raw materials. On a multilateral level, we are engaging in the Mineral Security Partnership Forum that I launched with the United States in April. Diversified partnerships is a key element of the European Commission's economic security strategy. Along with actively engaging with our partners, we must also protect ourselves against any potential abuse of our economic openness. In fact, this is a precondition for maintaining our openness in the first place. This is why we have recently updated and expanded the EU's autonomous trade instruments. For example, new instruments such as the anti-coercion instrument, foreign subsidies regulation, and the FDI screening regulation. We also updated the export control regulation. Some of these instruments address security risks, others aim to restore fair competition, and others address sustainability concerns or coercive practices. We have already started to use these new instruments. This is because we do what is necessary to protect and strengthen our economic security and ensure a level playing field. On this week we reached a first step in our investigation into imports of Chinese battery electrical vehicles. We pre-disclosed intended provisional tariffs. In this, as in all our trade measures, we will always respect the principles of proportionality and precision, as well as our international legal obligations. To conclude, I have little doubt that in years ahead, our global trade engagement will play an essential role in contributing to the EU's competitiveness and economic security. This will require a balanced combination of two approaches. On one hand, active trade engagement by negotiating with our wide range of trading partners, staying flexible and making use of various forms of agreements and platforms. On the other hand, using our range of autonomous instruments where necessary to protect the EU's single market from unfair competition and risks to economic security. Thank you, and I wish you a successful conference.
That was Valdis Dombrovskis, and now it is time to open our first chat on the future of global trade. Please give a round of applause to our speakers, Cora Jungblut, Senior Expert for China and Asia Pacific, Bertelsmann Stiftung.